You're at your old trusty boat. You call mighty sparrow. I'm in the city of Mardi Gras.
Welcome to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we hear stories from everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand. Hey everybody, before we begin, if you want to support the podcast, the best way to do it is to pick up a copy of Sailing into Oblivion, the book about my first voyage around the world. You can get it on Amazon, or if you like to listen to your books, you can also pick it up on Audible. I read it myself, and I hope you enjoy it. That's the best way to support things and keep me doing this podcast for free. If you want to see any of the videos or pictures, all the social media stuff is all under Sailing into Oblivion. So just search that and you'll be able to find me. Then lastly, if you want to reach out, you can go to sailingintooblivion.com and you can email me directly through that website. And that gives me some ideas about what you like and what you'd like to hear in the future. So thanks for listening. All right. Good morning, and we are live here on an early January 1st, 2022, right aboard Mighty Sparrow and tied to the dock here in South Carolina. And first full night of actual sleep, even though bunch of people got me up to sort of celebrate the new year and everything, but I fought my way through the grogginess and got up just because I haven't been around people for so long. I needed that. I needed a little bit of that action, so it was so nice to be surrounded by happy, fun, friendly people around a campfire and playing light up bocce ball. Oh man. Just good people all around, and my heart swells with happiness. Not to sound too weird, but it definitely does. So I wanted to kickstart this new year and this fresh start and all that stuff. As corny as some of it sounds, I do think that the benchmark of a brand new year is always something that underlying in everybody's head. They think of things they want to change and do different and start anew and all that stuff. So I'm right there in that group. And even though I don't have quote unquote, New Year's resolutions, I'm definitely thinking of things that I want to change and things I want to do different compared to especially the last 2 years, because they've been such a strange, out of the ordinary time. But so I think, I was looking at the podcast and wondering, when I was out at sea, I was still doing some recordings, a few hours at least of what was going on periodically through the trip. And I'd like to. I was wondering whether or not I wanted to continue doing the podcast, and in the end, I definitely figure it's absolutely worth it, just because I recently or towards the end was able to just sit down with people one on one and just have a great conversation and learn about the people. Even when I did ones with my brothers or cousins, I'm still learning things that. You think you know everything that's going on with your brothers, and all of a sudden all this new stuff comes up, and it's fantastic. So I'm definitely gung-ho and want to keep doing the podcast, even though it's one of those things. I have to sort of change the format. I got to get out of the patron thing. I'm just going to go down to the basic format of it, but it should still be able to be found on all the places where you guys get your podcasts. So I'm going to try and do a little bit more of a structured output of the podcast now that I have maybe 4 or 5 shows that are about an hour long about this most recent trip. So I'll try to put those out in I'm going to try at first to just do not bi-weekly, but twice weekly. So try to put one out on maybe Monday and then try and get one out on Friday. So try and do two for the week, something like that. I haven't figured it all out, but the goal is to just have enough sort of content because one of the things that I don't always realize is that there are a lot of people that enjoy it and like hearing some of the stories from not only me but from other people. And if that's the case, then hey, I'm more than happy to provide the content. And especially when I get emails, people sometimes go on to the sailinginto oblivion.com, the website I have for the speaking engagements and the public speaking stuff, and they'll track me down through there and send me some really great emails. And I got a fantastic one as I was going through some of them yesterday, and it was just somebody who owned a boat who really enjoys the podcast and sort of living through some of my adventures and all that, and was just thanking me for doing it. And oftentimes in my life, that's all it takes for me to dive right back into something and really try and exceed and do a little bit better is somebody letting kind of randomly that hey, appreciate it, and I like to do, I like what I hear and I enjoy it, and I can't wait for the next one. And as somebody who's just doing this podcast, sort of started it on a whim, a year ago or whatever, it's pretty cool to get feedback like that. And so I really appreciate it, and all the love and stuff. So I'm going to just keep on forging through. So one of the things I wanted to do today with this podcast was just kind of, I don't know, not wrap things up on this voyage, because I still have not gotten my head is still swirling. The seas were so rough and so choppy for so long. I just got out of the shower and I still haven't been able to take more than a 2-minute shower because I feel like I'm being bounced around. I woke up last night to just get a little glass of water, and because the boat was all dark, I was stumbling around. And it wasn't because I had quite a few bush lights last night. It was because I felt like this boat had been bouncing for so long, so violently, that my body's just completely used to it. So unless I can see out the portholes and see the other masts, or I don't know, it's very discombobulating. And I know that this land sickness lasted for about 10 days on the first big trip. The second trip, it didn't last very long at all because I think it was so calm while I was out there. But this trip definitely is a bit of a beast. Even though I had that time on the intercoastal to sort of, everything is flat, but I don't know, it's sticking with me. That land sickness, it's a real thing. I think I feel it a lot longer than I feel any sort of lack of sea legs when I get back out on the ocean. So I think that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so what I thought I would do today is, as maybe like a teaser or just as something I found kind of interesting, is I'd like to just talk about the final 24 hours of the voyage. And, obviously there's no spoilers because I made it. I'm talking to you right now. So I don't think listening to this, you'll ever feel like, well, I don't want to listen to the other ones about the rest of the voyage. I don't think it's like a, crime movie or anything like that. So I figured it's so vivid in my mind because it was so stressful and pretty interesting too. It was something I've never sort of experienced before. And so I thought I would just take everybody through sort of what happened the final day to get me back in here. And then that's it. We'll wrap it up on that, and I'll get to work on trying to put together all the next episodes and try and track some people down and get some good interviews out of some of these guys. There's a few people that I have my eye on down here that I think would be really interesting, especially with the line of work that they're in, and just from meeting them last night, it was pretty cool people. So hopefully we'll get some great interviews in here. And I do have to get the boat situated. Like right now, I have to balance my time in between uh, sort of closing out everything from this last voyage as far as all the people that donated for the MS Society, which we raised $8,015, which blows my mind. I can't even fathom how much money we would have raised had the voyage continued, because right now I'd be approaching Cape Horn, I think, with another 6-8 months to go. So that would have been really, really cool, and I'm still sort of struggling with that one. But it feels so impossibly good to be on steady ground at this point that I'm not too worried about it right now. So, but I'm sort of having to balance things between closing all that out. I want to reach out to all the people that donated. I want to make sure that every all the followers and stuff are all updated on what's going on and everything, and that takes a little bit because the whole social media stuff. I don't I That's one of the things I'm trying to figure out whether or not I want to engage with so much. But at this point, there's enough followers on there where I think it's only right to do some updates and share some of the content, and then see where we go from there. But it's trying to do that, and then it's basically fixing this boat up. First of all, just getting it cleaned. The first step was the laundry. Oh, I had a bag of laundry that smelled so bad. Oh my gosh, you think grimy clothes are grimy, but boy, you add a dash of salt water and some heat to that, put it in a plastic bag, and you're talking chemical warfare at that point. It's pretty crazy. Mm. Oh gosh, coffee with fresh water, so good. Well, we'll get into that, but besides that, it's also just trying to figure out what the next step is. I've got an idea for the next book that I want to write, and yeah, I've got to start putting notes together and all that, and then it's mostly just reaching out to people, all the people that sort of supported the trip, and friends and family and all that. And the numbers keep adding up on people I want to reach out to. And it takes a little bit of time, but I'll tell you, it is 100% worth it. I talked to my Aunt Michelle last night, and she has a kindergarten class who was following the trip. And it was really amazing when I was out there, because it was this huge boost of morale anytime I got a message from them and sent a message back. And I put them in charge of my candy supply and how much I could eat of the gummy bears each week and all that sort of stuff. But it was mostly, the fact that she was amazed how engaged these young kids got in this adventure, and how much they were learning about geography and the oceans and all that. And it was great. I think I talked to her for 10-15 minutes, and it's just so fabulous to connect after a long absence. I'm a firm believer that it is absolutely never too late to call up an old friend or somebody that you might have drifted apart from, because even if you just end up having a conversation with them, it's always better. I don't think I have any experience of having somebody pick up the phone that I haven't talked to in 5 years, and them being like, dude, come on, give me a break, and hanging up the phone. I can't even imagine that. I think that's something that only happens in movies. But yeah, so for the final day, and I hope these numbers that I'm spitting out are sort of accurate, but I believe it was the 74th full day out on the ocean. I could be wrong on that. It might have been the 73rd, but I basically woke up that morning very early. It was maybe 3 or 4 in the morning, because the AIS alarm had been going off. And it's very common. There's lots of ships out there as you approach the East Coast, and more so now than I've ever seen, and much further out. So for the previous few days, I kept coming across these ships that are just doing circles out there. These 1,000-foot container ships that are generally just doing nothing, waiting, I guess. And whenever there's traffic around, I can't really sleep all that well until they are well gone and I'm far past them. And the AIS alarm, it would go off, and then I get up. Long story short, I'm basically coming into this last day and maybe 50, 60 miles off the coast, headed pretty much directly for the entrance to Port Royal Sound, and looking at the numbers and all that, because I really didn't want to arrive at night to try and dock the boat after I knew it's always about 20 or 25 miles of motoring up the rivers and in the intercoastal to get up here. And basically, to get to where I am now, there's two ways. You can go up Port Royal, Port Royal Sound, which is very wide and easier to navigate, and then you can come up St. Helens Sound, which hooks into the intercoastal. Very windy, very narrow. There's some little sections where you've only got 40 feet on a little road to get through, and it's very difficult to navigate at night by yourself. And so you've got those two choices, and Port Royal Sound is takes a little less time, but to get to where I am, you have to have a swing bridge open, and it only does it on a schedule, so you have to sort of work that in. And then the biggest thing for me was, when I do get to the marina, I want it to be slack water, so the tide and the current isn't moving at all. Mighty Sparrow is a lot of things, but an able, agile docking master, she is not. And you always want to make sure that you have the best conditions to be able to put this boat, especially in a very tight marina. And so those were some of my concerns, and I'm trying to figure all these out. And my buddy Scott from here, who's helping me with the weather, always checking in, big morale boost kind of guy. He had let me know what the high tide and low tides were. So those my goals were basically to try and arrive at the marina either at midnight or midnight on the 30, I guess it would be the 30th, or at just about 7 a.m. the following morning. And so the winds were nice. We were moving pretty fast. Seas were starting to ease down as we got closer to the coast. The chop sort of built up quite a bit. And I was a little bit worried after going through the Gulf Stream. It was got choppy enough out there where I was kind of worried that the engine would end up, I'd go to fire it up there at the entrance to one of these channels, and it had seawater come in, and now I have to do some sort of quasi oil change because I barely have enough oil to do that. And there were a lot of sort of things that were creeping in on me about what could happen and all this sort of stuff. And, in the end, once you get into these rivers and onto the intercoastal, worst comes to worst, you throw your anchor down, and then, because it's all pretty much shallow stuff, and you'll be okay. You will make it through and all that. So it's not an extreme, like, oh my gosh, if something goes wrong, like the boat's going to sink. No, if anything, the boat's going to get stuck in the mud for a little bit, and then then you move out. But in my twisted 2 months at sea sort of brain, I was getting pretty hyped up about everything. And the day started out really nice. Lots of ships and stuff all hanging out outside of Savannah, so I'm sort of targeting them. And I'm looking at the numbers, trying to figure out my ETA, how it's going to be best to get in there. And I decide that rather than arrive mid-tide, so strongest currents around like 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, if I do the direct shorter route. I figured, okay, well maybe I'll take the really long route and go up into St. Helens Sound, which is a little more challenging, and maybe I'll just anchor up out there and wait out sort of a little bit of the night, and then gun it forward and try and make the 6 a.m. on the 31st. So yesterday, make the 6 a.m. slack tide here at the marina. And so cruising, and it's pretty amazing. You know that land's like 50 miles away, and you think, wow, we're getting really close, especially after crossing an ocean. And that's still 50 miles, and you're doing 5.5, 6 knots. That takes like 9 hours. So you get all excited, and you sort of stand there, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, 9 hours. Maybe I should take a nap, uh, do some other stuff. But uh, essentially, I'm going in, and the wind's starting to ease up, and then all of a sudden this sort of fog bank rolls in, and because the cold water current is going towards the coast, and then I start looking at the batteries, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, don't have a lot of charge, haven't run the engine in a couple of days, cold water, it's going to be a bit of a hard start, and so I go to fire it up just to test it. So the seas had calmed down a little bit. I just want to make sure she was ready, and was able to get her started. It wasn't the easiest start. It was a little slow. The battery wore down just a little bit, and then presto, it fired right up. All the other fluids, the oil, everything was okay. Temperature was good. Ran it for like an hour just to get the engine warm, so that by the time I got in there, it'd still be warm enough where it would fire right up, and everything was cool. So that took my anxiety level down quite a bit. And then I proceeded basically to just head for the entrance to St. Helens Sound. And it's pretty easy. There wasn't a whole lot. Once I passed most of the ships waiting outside of Savannah, it's pretty much clear water, didn't see anything. And I did go past this big old horn tower, I think is what it's called on the chart. And it's this creepy, it looks like a lookout tower coming straight out of the ocean, maybe 50, 60, 80 feet tall. I don't know, but something from the olden days, I guess. Really cool, though. I went pretty close to it, and it's like a little house on it and a helicopter pad and stuff. So I don't know what they do out there with those. But anyway, so yeah, we're cruising in, and it's one of those things where I was like, man, it's going to be kind of a long night here, and even though I don't know, I'm very tired from the night before, barely getting any sleep. The fact that I was headed in and I was getting so close to land, I just could not sleep. I tried, but if I hop in my bunk and I lay my head down, close my eyes, and if I can't fall asleep within about 10 minutes, I'm just like, well, this is stupid. Might as well not just lie here. And I'll get up, and I was reading and played some games and stuff like that, and basically just trying to get past it. But most of the time, all I want to do is be up on deck and just wait until I actually saw the land. That first sighting. It's always pretty exciting. And problem is, here in the low country, you don't see the land until you're pretty much right on top of it, and along with the fog and stuff. So we get in, and finally around 4 o'clock ish, I sight the first buoys that are going to take me through the shoals and into the sound proper. And I'm starting to second guess my little ETA, and I'm looking at it, and as far as I can tell, on the chart, it's about 25 to 30 miles, give or take. And I don't have a paper chart. I'm just working off of the iPad to go through these parts of the river. And that's a big no-no in my book. I did write out the path onto a piece of paper, like a little drawing, so that in case you lose everything, you can still work your way. You're not just like, oh, well, now I can't navigate because my technology broke down. I got a piece of paper that tells me, but it's going to be way harder to navigate with that piece of paper than how easy they make it with the navionics and all that sort of stuff. So in any event, we come in, and I had seen some pretty massive cumulonimbus clouds, some thunderheads and stuff, but they were all seemed to be moving off to the northeast. I didn't think too much of it. I was like, oh, hey, I lucked out. Here we go. This is nice. That stuff's going away. Should be nice and calm. And that's one of the nice things. You get on the intercoastal and it's dead flat calm. It wasn't even windy at all, but sun starts to set behind some big clouds. It's looking a little ominous, but nothing too bad. And I'm adding up these numbers and I'm looking and I'm thinking, holy cow, okay. If high tide is there, low tide's there, I could reach the slack water of low tide just about the exact same time I get to that marina. And that's doing an average of, I averaged out only 4 knots because I knew the current was beginning to come against me. And I'm just thinking, holy cow, if I can get in there by midnight, then I could be standing on ground, drinking a beer with some people, and then get an actual good night's sleep and wake up on the dock and be able to take a shower and do all that stuff. I mean, dream come true. It's so impossible to describe as you're getting closer to land, your want, your need, your desire to actually be on that land. And so that was what was really driving me at this point. And so I'm sort of busying myself and I'm thinking, okay, well, let me reach out to the dockmaster, let him know, because obviously I would appreciate a little help, but I more than anything, I just wanted to let him know in case there were any issues or anything like that, because they had already reserved a slip for me. And he's like, oh, man, that's great. You need anything? I gave him a little list, some beers, pizza, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. And guy's so awesome. This dockmaster here is like the absolute best, and hooked everything up. He and his girlfriend, and oh man, so now I even have that. That's even more of a carrot. I'm just like, no matter what, you're gonna get in. You want to get in, and I still had to prepare for the worst. And as the light is getting a little dimmer, I get into the sound proper, and I start taking the sails down, and I'm doing sort of a little general cleanup, get the boat ready for full visual so I don't have anything in my way except for the mainsail once I brought it down. And boy, it was in the way. Holy cow. But because you're just going to be motoring. And I've got my little tiller pilot, which is kind of an autopilot that I can only use on this boat because it's so heavy when I'm motoring. But it works pretty well. And I set that up. So we're motoring. I'm on autopilot. And I'm in the wide open stretches of the sound. So a mile wide, 10 miles long sort of thing where there's not much going on. And I get the anchor out from down below in the forepeak, which was kind of a pain. But it's one of those things, if you don't have your anchor ready and you're in the intercoastal, you're crazy. Because anything goes wrong, you've got to be able to stop that boat from drifting. And so I get that all set up. Everything else is in bags. Listening to some new podcasts I'm downloading because I have cell service. I wanted to start reaching out and calling people and stuff, but at the same time, knowing that my engine was a little rough, I needed to be able to hear that very well. And then also, I needed to just be able to pay attention because soon enough, it's going to be all blinking lights, red and greens, and then unlit pedestals and buoys and probably other traffic, all these sort of things. So I'm entering what I personally think is some of the most difficult sailing or boating conditions out there. Out on the ocean, I can pretty much do whatever I want. I'm not worried about hitting anybody or anything. And once you get into land as a solo sailor, it's like hyper focus time. And so I'm all set up. I've got my little iPad up there. I've got it under plastic and all this sort of stuff. And we're going. And I'm feeling pretty confident. And then as it gets dark, I start to realize that there's a lot of flashing going on, a lot of lightning, way off in the distance at the start, but definitely there. And I think to myself, well, geez, I got internet, or I have my cell phone, and I look at the radar, and the first thing I see is severe thunderstorms next 4 hours. I'm just like, no! Oh, are you kidding me? Mother Nature, you're going to throw this at me after all this time? Oh, man. Just to the very end of this trip, it was going to be a battle. And as the night sort of came in, I think around 8 o'clock, I finally realized just how severe these thunderstorms were. I mean, we're talking bolt lightning every second, off to the southeast, off to the southwest, off to the northeast, and it's just like, holy cow! Okay, I'm definitely going to be going through these things. But then there was just that thought of a beer and pizza and solid ground that just sort of kept me going. And that the one thing I did have, because I don't, one of the things that I do always sort of consider is I don't ever want to put anybody else at risk. And, it's one of the things that when I used to do a lot of driving to different presentations and stuff, when the conditions got really, really bad, I mean, I'm more apt to pull over because I don't want to be a risk trying to navigate through some snowstorm and accidentally plow into somebody because I know I shouldn't be out there. And the one sort of thing I did figure is that I'm probably going to be the only idiot who's trying to navigate the intercoastal during these severe thunderstorms. And I was right. I did not see one single other boat the whole time I was out there. But so we're motoring, engine sounds good, doing my thing. Got these thunderstorms just sort of like, oh, they're not over me yet, but they're definitely all over. And the radar says they're coming right for us. And I just keep on plugging away, and mile after mile go, and the current is going out. The tide is going out, so I'm going slow. I'm only doing 3.5 knots. But even then, at night, under this dark conditions, which wasn't super dark because there's enough ambient light from the towns and cities around, but dark enough where it feels like you're going 15 miles an hour. It feels like it, even though you look at that screen and it's telling you you're barely moving at all. But I get into it and it starts to rain, and I get my first wave of thunderstorms. And normally I get into a thunderstorm, and my protocol is if there's bolts or a huge flash lightning that I know is right over me, put the computers, put the sat phone, the inReach, the cell phone, put them all in the oven, and then come down below and just wait it out. Obviously, I didn't have that option. I did put most of the stuff in the oven, but I couldn't put the iPad in there because I was using it to navigate. And I had to stay on deck. I hate being in that cockpit when there's lightning, especially bolt lightning hitting things. None of the strikes were super close at this point, so I wasn't too worried. But I knew that there were some of the big red zones coming up by I think like 9:30, 10 o'clock. So it was like a ticking time bomb out there. And I don't really have the option of speeding up because I'm trying to get to this marina right at slack tide. And I was told that at a certain point, I was going to enter a little sort of where two rivers sort of combined. And that was where the tide was going to sort of change for me, where even though it was still going out, I was now on the outgoing side of it. And so I was sort of waiting for that. We didn't have too many mishaps. There were a couple of times where it started raining so hard I had to bring the iPad down below. And so now I'm going from the cockpit down below, check it out, go back up, look around, and not the best situation at all. And I started thinking, maybe it is better. I just go ahead and anchor and wait this out. But again, there's that thought. I can get to land and it's only a few hours away. And as I get closer, it's more and more of like, I can do it. The hardest part is about, I don't know, an hour away where it gets really, really narrow. There's lots of houses and docks and all this sort of stuff, and not a lot of wiggle room at all. And again, the tide's going out, so the water's getting lower and lower and lower, so that my little wiggle room is shrinking and shrinking. And finally, we get to that second wave of thunderstorms that come in. And I don't know how. I was just so lucky, I guess. But the bolt lightning ceased. It was all just big flash lightning illuminating the clouds. It was still scary, still super bright and all that, but it wasn't bolt lightning. Bolt lightning just scares me to death because that's the stuff where I'm figuring it's just looking for anything tall that it can latch onto. And hey, look at this. Oh, nice 50-foot mast. Oh, it's made out of metal. Hey, let's hit that. Oh, it's got a spider web of metal wires coming off it. I mean, what's more perfect than that? But so luckily, this one, and it's basically raining. I'm wearing my glasses because I need that perfect vision. Can't have the contacts, screwing up or anything. So I'm sitting up there with a paper towel in my hand, and I'm like wiping my glasses because it's rain, and I'm trying to see. And then I'm poking my head down, looking at the iPad. Where am I? Where am I? What's next? What's next? Up on deck, looking. Really stressful. And this is going on. I enter the sound around 5. Sun sets shortly thereafter. Now it's almost 10:30 at night. So it's been going on for like 5 hours of super hyper focus. I'm only on like 2 hours sleep from the night before, and then maybe 2 hours of sleep from the night before that. I'm pretty much just a wreck, but I am so determined. And luckily, I'd been out at sea for so long, I was pretty used to those conditions and used to that mindset and that feeling and that exhaustion that it was manageable. I'm not gonna lie. It was sort of, I've been just living that life for so long. I was okay with it. I think it's sort of like a functioning alcoholic where you wake up, you're really really rough still, but you just get through it. You get on through the day. You get back from work, and then you dive right back in, and that's sort of how I felt. I was like, I can do this. Like I'm not gonna collapse here from exhaustion. This is just how I live these days, or at least for the last 2 months. But so we get through, and finally I get through the tiniest little narrow area. The lightning is past. The rain is finally letting up. Get through this super tight area. Thought for sure I was going to run aground. I had to actually hand steer because the little tiller pilot was unable to correct fast enough with the currents. The current will throw it off a little bit, and then it slowly tries to correct, but it's not really doing a great job because it's just a little tiny little thing connected to the tiller. But we get through, and then the river opens up, and I'm sort of like, oh, okay, cool. And it's about 11 o'clock, so I still have an hour. And I had looked at the whole thing a whole bunch during the day while I was sailing in because I wanted to make sure I was as familiar as possible with the route. And I don't know, through all the focus and everything, I didn't realize that once you made it to where the river widens out again, where I was at that point, it was only about 4 miles to get to the marina. So I was going to end up being way early. And one of the things that happened was once I did make that turn, I went from doing 3 knots to doing 8 knots. And I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, okay, whoa. And so I slowed back way, way down. And I text the dock master, and he's like, oh, yeah, no worries. Just there's a whole bunch of crab pots in the little thoroughfare as you go past the bridge and enter in. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, great. Another little obstacle. Toss it on. Okay, we can do this. And no, actually, I was more like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Seriously? Now we got pots? Is this ever going to end? But I said, my text was, hey, I'll just text you when I see the bridge. And then I sort of scroll forward and I see that I am really close. And about 2 seconds later, I turn the corner and I see the bridge. So I'm right there, and I'm an hour early. So the current is still going to be ripping through the marina. And I'm just like, I knew I had the option of, okay, be patient, do the smart thing, anchor. But now I've got all these people in there waiting, and they're sort of like, oh, yeah, come on in, we'll get you in. I was like, well, how's the current? Is it still ripping? And they're all like, yeah. And I'm hearing all this through the cell phone. Oh, man. But they come out, they say, all right, well, we'll meet you out there. We'll guide you through the crab pots. And I wasn't really worried about the crab pots too much. you have to run in Sparrow. You have to run that sucker over like completely immediately, but like perfectly to tangle it out. But at the same time, low water, no wiggle room. If the engine quits, you have mere seconds before you're in the mud. But luckily at low tide, you will come. You'll be able to get out because the tide's going to come back up. Either way, I decide not to anchor out and wait for an hour, and I work my way in. The guys come out in the boat, and they're in a great mood. Everybody's super psyched. These are all people that I've known for a couple of years now, and slowly I'm just sandbagging it, or not sandbagging, but I'm milking it that last little half mile to get up to the marina. I'm going as dead slow as I can just to eat away a few more minutes to because every minute that went by the current was slowing down just a bit more. And I get up there and I see all these people and they're like clapping and all this stuff, and it was so nice, and I'm just so excited. I know that once I get tied up, all the relief in the world is going to flood over me enough to make me faint almost. It's just incredible. And I get in there and I do my first attempt and I pull out so fast. I'm like, whoa, no way. There's no way I'm making that turn. And I shout in there and I'm like, hey, guys, I don't think I can make that turn. I think I'm just going to anchor out, or I'll just hang loose for like 45 minutes and then we'll come in. It'll be a lot easier. And all I hear is, hey, come on, whatever. It's a boat. You can do it. And all this heckling. And normally that would not affect me. I have always been one of the people, one of the boaters that my ego is I throw that directly off of the boat when it comes to docking. The number one goal in docking is do not hit anything. Do not hit anybody else's boat, number one. Try not to damage your own boat, number two, or the dock. Those are the top priorities. I don't care if I have to have 100 people out there helping me, and I just don't want to. I don't want to have to call an insurance company. That's my biggest fear, and I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to damage anything. So it's dark. I'm tired. Thunderstorms are all. Luckily, that's all over. There's no wind, so I got that on my side. Current is definitely moving pretty fast, and the trouble is, I got to get down this little in between these two piers with all these fingers that are pointed at each other. I got to get down there, and then I actually have to turn with the current. Which basically what that means, as soon as I'm inside of this corridor, I'm already moving towards the slip, so I'm losing the amount of turning that I can do. And with Sparrow's bowsprit and how long the keel is and slow she turns, basically I knew if I'm going to be able to do this without smashing into this other boat, I'm going to have to come in pretty fast, because it's hard to describe, but it wasn't like I was going in and then going to end up sort of turning into the dock. I had to turn around and get onto this finger. So I needed to be able to make this complete 90-degree turn and then slow the boat down. And so I just, I gunned her in there. There were a lot of people, and I shouted. I was like, you guys better fend me off, and all this stuff. I mean, it was so loud. We woke up a lot of people at the marina, and I think a lot of people the next day came up. They were talking to me. They were like, boy, we could hear you shouting and saying stuff like, you don't think you can do it. And we came up, we were worried. But so I gun it in there and then gun it into reverse, make that turn. And they all fended me off, and we tied up, and I didn't hit a single thing. And it actually looked like I knew what I was doing. And normally I do. I've done enough boat moving and shifting and docking that I'm pretty okay with it. But it's still, after being at sea for that long, it's very hard to it's very hard to then all of a sudden be in close quarters maneuvering when you've been in the exact opposite for so long. So get tied off, and then it's just, oh my gosh, all these people come down below, turn the engine off, hop onto the dock, and my legs pretty much almost buckle. And even though it's a floating dock, it still just felt so weird. And all I wanted was water. I just was like, give me some water. And I ended up actually just taking my little Brita filter, little pitcher out and filling it up out of one of the hoses just to drink that, because I had run completely out of water on the boat, and I was pumping it out of the little desal pump, which does not taste good at all. And so I get there, and then all of a sudden, there's just hugs and all this stuff. And I preempted, because I knew, I'm coming from this sterile world, no germs, no colds, none of that stuff. And I wanted to make sure I'd be okay, and took one of those vitamin C emergency powder things, and so I'm like, yeah, give me a hug, it's all good. And I knew I'm not gonna, because I've done that plenty of times where I've been out at sea, and then you come in, and the first person who's got a cold, all of a sudden you've got it, and it's like, oh no. But in any event, yeah, all these just hugs and beers being thrust in my way. And then all of a sudden a plate with some pizza on it, and chips, and all these things that I've been dreaming about for so long, and just most of all just people, and talking to them, and just so happy to listen, and it's impossible to describe how discombobulated you feel, because at that point, I mean, one, I'm dizzy from not moving anymore. Two, I'm completely exhausted. Three, I'm frazzled from the storm, the lightning, all that sort of stuff, and the docking. And then I'm just overwhelmed with joy, because I'm seeing people, and all of a sudden I have food and beer, and all this. It's just, you mix all that together, and I felt like my head was going to explode. My smile hurt so much. It was ear to ear, wouldn't stop for $1,000,000. Like, it was incredible, and it felt so good. And we all hung out. It was late at night. All these guys stayed up for me. We all hung out for like an hour, and then I went off to go and take a shower, and then collapse in my bunk. And I get up there, and first I went and just did a quick walk on the grass just to feel it. And boy, I was definitely land sick for sure, wobbling around. And I get into the shower, and this is a room that doesn't have a window, so it already feels really weird when I get in there. But then I hop in that shower, and I'm literally bouncing off of the walls in there. I can't. I've lost complete equilibrium. My balance is off. I took about a minute and a half shower and got the heck out of there. I pretty much just wetted myself down, threw some shampoo in my beard, and just peaced out. And came right back out, and everybody's still there. And they're like, what the hell was that? And I'm like, dude, I can't do it. It's going to take me a while before I can actually take like a 10-minute shower. So after that, I hop on board, and still everything's gross and salty and smells terrible. And finally, I'm now realizing how terrible it smells down below, because I'd just been in a fragrant shower, smelling of soap and shampoo, and then to come back on the boat, and I was like, oh, geez. So I open up some portholes and just collapse in the salty bunk, and giggle myself to sleep. I was so comfortable for the first time in a long time that I was just laughing. And the boat had a pretty extreme list that I hadn't noticed out at sea, obviously. But so it kind of looked like the boat in Captain Ron when they first come up to it. It's just sort of like, oh man, that's looking a bit rough for wear. But within minutes, I was dead asleep, and slept like the dead for at least 4 hours. I think I was up pretty early yesterday, but that concludes the last 24 hours of this voyage. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything at this point, and I'm sure by the end of the next few episodes about this trip, I will have hopefully a thoughtful rethinking and of what happened and everything and the adventure as a whole. But I just wanted to share that 24 hours. It was something else. It was probably one I won't forget for a long time. It seems like I've always had the sort of luck where when I have my landfall days, they're always a bit of a challenge. And that one was one of the most challenging, scariest, most thrilling landfalls I've ever made. But it was also probably the one I was most thankful for. I would definitely say it's in the top three, and I guess that's kind of a no brainer there because this is my third really extended voyage, but it felt good and it feels good now. I'm looking at a mountain of work to do to try and get everything sorted out, and I'm going to start that pretty much right after I go get some breakfast. But yeah, it definitely just it feels so good. And I think one of my first steps here going into this new year is to sit down with a pen and a notebook and start making some lists. Everything from people I want to get in touch with to projects I want to do to future endeavors to where I want to see myself in 5 years. I think it's the perfect morning to start out with that and then dive into some boat work and all that. But first, I'm going to try and publish this sucker and get it out there. So you'll probably be listening to this on January 2nd or thereafter. But again, I want to thank everybody for all the support, and especially the people that joined the fight on the MS Society. I don't know if that's going to continue on throughout this year. I'm hoping it will, but they may close it out as I finish the trip. So we'll sort of see. I guess I'll update people on that because if we can still continue to raise money, that would be fantastic. But if 8,000 is what we made, hey, that's pretty darn good, and I'm pretty happy about that. So other than that, I hope everybody enters into this year with as much hope and seeing the possibilities that are out there as I am, as I'm feeling right now, because it definitely feels good. We only have so much time to be able to do the stuff we need to do and do the stuff that we want to do. Boy, I'm getting a little choked up there. Still on that emotional roller coaster, I guess. But I just wish everybody well, and let's try and make this this new year coming in one of the best we've ever had. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.